first time I saw Edna was when she walked into reservations, and I had already been with American Airlines approximately 6 months.
And I saw Alan walk in and take his time card and punch it, and I thought, oh, I like that.
And later on that morning, it happened that we were able to meet in the lunchroom. And she had brought some food in a brown paper bag, as most of us did back then. And she offered me a half of her sandwich.
I went home that evening and told my roommate, Donna Jean, I've seen the man I'm going to marry. And she said, oh yeah, right. And lo and behold, Pop told his family the same thing. And that sort of started it.
And it was just a wonderful, exciting start. And I can't describe how my heart was just pounding, hoping to say the right thing and not spoil a good start.
6 months later, we were married, which is not the way you're supposed to do anything.
The first date was probably when she made dinner for me. And I think it was a steak. I remember one of the comments she made was one of her roommates took something out of the refrigerator that she had planned to feed me or fix for me. And she was a little perturbed about that, but it worked out fine. And, you know, I didn't care whether I ate anything. The fact is, I was in the apartment with her, and we shared a dinner together. And I more or less felt at that time that this was going to go further.
He was very cautious about showing his emotions. I think he was very frightened, perhaps, by the way our relationship progressed so rapidly. And the closest he came to saying, I love you, was we were walking along Malibu Beach one night, and the stars were out. And he's so corny sometimes, he still is. But he said, who knows what the moon and the stars hold for us?
She didn't think much of that. Probably thought, what kind of a farm boy am I going with here? But sometime later after that, I said, you know, I think I'm in love with you. Or I think I'm falling in love with you. I probably cautioned it even to that point.
I've been told before, I love you. I'm passionate about you. I want to marry you. I want to do this or that. But I'd never been told, I think I'm falling in love with you.
I was a very cautious individual, and I use that term sparingly. In fact, I'm not sure that I said it to any girl or woman before that.
I don't remember exactly what I responded, but I know that I thought, this is a first. I have never been told this, but I accepted it. There was no engagement ring right off the bat. There was no mad promises of what we would do or places we would go. But knowing the family he came from a little bit, and knowing his deep religious convictions, I felt this was a man that wouldn't say that he loved you or was committed to you unless he really was. How silly. So yeah, I just waited, which is hard for me, but I waited.
It didn't take much thinking through when we got to Catalina. It's a beautiful setting, and I simply didn't want to wait any longer for fear she would get tired of my waiting to ask her. And I started to get a little fear that there was a lot of guys after her, believe me.
Alan had to work the late shift, so he picked me up like at 10:30 or 11 o'clock from my folks' house, and we were driving to Las Vegas, Leland and Jim were following in their car.
And we had the 1957 Ford Fairlane 500, which had a very powerful engine. And I remember we would drive up over those hills and grades.
And no Leland and Jim's headlights. So we'd stop and we'd make out like crazy. And we proceeded on. It took us forever to get to Las Vegas. It may not have taken as long as it seemed because we were so anxious to get there. But we did indeed, and he went in to a motel, and he was gone, he was gone, he was gone. And he came back, and he said, well, that was difficult. And I said, what? And he said, trying to convince the guy I wanted 2 rooms. I told him we weren't married yet. We were getting married tomorrow. And the man said, so have 1 room. Pop said, no, he wanted 2 rooms. So I'm sure the man thought we were absolutely nuts. He gave us 2 rooms, but there was an adjoining door, which remained chastely closed the whole night. And that was the night before the wedding.
We really had very little preparation. I think the priest walked us through what he was going to say and what responses we should have, and I was very nervous. I mean, extremely nervous. It was hard for me to repeat the right words.
The priest said, I, Edna Hawthorne. And Alan said, along with me, I, Edna Hawthorne. And I said, no, just me. Oh, okay. I, Edna Hawthorne. And he wanted to start talking again, so he stopped. So we got through that part. And then it was time for the blessing. Then it was time to put the rings on. And he held out the wrong hand, and I still insisted on pushing this ring on the wrong hand. It was going to fit no matter what, come hell or high water. So I kept saying, the other hand. So we finally switched hands, and we got that on. And we were giggling. The priest was laughing, I was laughing, Alan was laughing, my sister was about to wet her pants. And the priest finally says, okay, you may now kiss the bride. So he goes to lift my little short veil, and he caught it on the tip of my nose. And he kept lifting, and my head kept going back and back and back. And my sister was catching me behind.
And so anyway, it was pretty obvious I was very, very nervous. And with the little preparation time and, quite frankly, the little sleep we'd had, I'm surprised we got through it.
And then we went out gambling.
Yes, and before we went gambling, and then Jim wanted beer, and Edna said, no, we're having champagne at my wedding.
That was after the wedding. We went going back to the Sarah.
Yes.
And so Pop went to get some champagne, and my sister and I went back there, and we're waiting at the cabana, a little separate cottage. It was so neat. And they're gone, and they're gone. And they're gone, and they're gone. And finally,
well, it turned out
up.
Jim did want a couple of beers at the bar, and so I said, I'll sit with you. Well, the USC-UCLA football game was going, and I don't know how so much time elapsed, but evidently more time went by than I thought, because Edna wasn't real happy when we got back with the champagne.
No.
And so anyway, I don't recall, but I guess we had the champagne and beer. Jim had his beer, and we decided to do some gambling, and Edna kept me up until 1 or 2 in the morning. And I think it was more or less
retaliation.
In retaliation for me watching the game.
Well, you were anything but the anxious bridegroom. I mean, you got a new...
No, that's not true. It just...
You've got a new wife, but the football game's on. The SC game. I mean, that's a hard choice.
Well, there's only one game a year with those 2 teams, and I'm going to have a wife every day of the year.
You think.